Our company, along with the Lee Ranch Coal Mine Company, is sponsoring and supporting this project for the mine as part of an archaeological compliance program. We started with the archaeology and realized that all the people from the various Pueblos and the Navajo people wanted to be able to remember the landscape. They wanted to be able to hold some of that cultural information. We wanted to put people back into it.
Okay, what we have here is like a little rock wall that they used as a little camp for themselves. The sheep herder, not necessarily the sheep, maybe a lamb or so, but then basically this is where they would stay and watch over the sheep that's down in the valley. Instead of having to go all the way back to the camp, they might have put up like a canvas type covering. They will put it over the trees and make shade for themselves and just sit there and watch the sheep, because the sheep will just graze. And if need be, the sheep herder will holler at his dog, maybe keep the sheep in place. But usually they use this as just a protection from the weather, from the elements out there, and not getting sunburned or whatever, or just staying cool.
Aki ahi aki yo, aki anio, aki anio, aki ahi ahi awi yo hey yo hey ne ya. Aki 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 yo, ahi anio.
Yes, I'm Harold So, and I'm 70 years old. I live in the village of Powati. I'm originally from Insinal, and I was born and I was raised here. It's been told by our parents about the life that existed during those days and during their childhood and the times when they were growing up. And that was the livelihood in those days, was livestock, whether it was cattle or sheep and all. And everything was horseback and wagon.
My name is Victor Saraceno. I'm a member of the Laguna tribe, and I'm a member of the Water Clan and Little Roadrunner. That's my clanship. About the time when I grew old enough to go out into the field, we had sheep. So every summer after school from Albuquerque, they took me to the sheep camp. And one of the places of sheep camp is right here where we're at. Throughout the year, they at least spent 3 to 4 months here at this camp doing their lambing, because it's so important that the lambs are raised well.
My name is Eldon Francisco. I'm now 69 years old, and I was raised and still keep my membership at the village of Powati. I guess I started herding sheep when I was about maybe 4 years old. They made you see it as a real big man's duty. The lambs that were born just the night before, they're weak, they don't walk around much, so you have to herd them close to the house. But I was taught at an early age to know every sheep by just like knowing the face of a person and which lamb it belonged to or which lamb belonged to the ewe. But there's a lot that you had to look for, not just being there.
Okay, well again, like I said, this is probably they put their lambs after they dropped, during the lambing season, put them in this small area and kept them pretty much right there, maybe 10 or 15 of them. So, they're pretty small. There's really no opening there where they would just reach in there and pull them out. Keep them protected from, again, coyotes. Mainly that's probably what they protected them from, was coyotes.
As they would say sometimes, my uncle would say, we're going to start lambing April 15th. And everybody goes to the sheep camp. And during that time, they stay until the lambing was done and the sheep were sheared.
Folks used to hire people from Jemez tribe There's man folks that do a real good sheep shearing, and then some from some of the Spanish people that live nearby, they do that. So they bring them on. We build them. We put up tents for them, and we provide them with food and everything else that they need, fuel for light. So that's what takes place here.
You try to take the fleece off in one piece, and then you roll it up with your fleece side out, the part next to the skin. That's out, and then you tie it with a paper string.
They would bring the wool and put them in the bag, and the rest of us kids or women folks would get in the sack and stomp on it and to pack it in a good.
After the shearing was done and the lambs are strong enough to move, they start moving to different parts of the reservation. And in the old days, Daddy and Uncle used to pack 7 or 8 burros. Two burros carried the pannier boxes, another one carried the bedrolls, another one carried this and that.
The leader of the sheep herder would go out into the distant area to find where there might be plenty of grass. So that would be the next stop. And everybody picked up. We had several burros, packing burros. They hauled water and wood, food, and then the mules, donkeys. One of them was spotted, and that was my favorite. That was the only mule that I could have him do things for me. I ride him around once in a while, you know. But that's what we used to haul our supplies from one camp to another.
Our place was to herd sheep over here on the south side of Mount Taylor in the forest. Around on the high part of the mountain, a lot of it is just rolling hills in there. There's no real steep canyons except on the edges of the mountain like these here. There's steep canyons.
I guess I was in the 6th grade when I was finally allowed to start herding the yearlings. Gosh, boy, that was a prestigious job because you got to go all day. You packed your lunch and it was wrapped in a tea towel, and you tied it on your back and tied it on your waist. And of course, you had to take along about a half gallon of water in a canteen. Of course, we always maybe took along a Reader's Digest or a comic book, but golly, Grandpa did not want us to look at comic books or any kind of reading on the side, because he said, well, if you did that, why, you took your mind off the sheep, so you had to hide them from Grandpa.
My name is Lauren Maria, and I'm from the Pueblo of Laguna. I live at Parahi Village, and my clan is Hapanihanusta, that's Oak Clan. And Mayawashikta, it's Shashkawashikta. I'm a little roadrunner and a little lizard from my dad's side. My mom has told me is when she was a little girl, her and her sister, her brothers, their parents, you know, owned sheep and cattle, and they herded sheep south of the Pueblo. My mom, as a little girl, they traveled there by a wagon. They went out there. It took them maybe a couple of days to get out there, but my grandma stayed at home and took care of the household there, and she also planted crops, and then she had turkeys, chickens, that type of thing.
But we had a grandmother that was our cook. She was an excellent cook, and every time when you go out to herd sheep, you look forward to coming home to eat a good supper. Man, that's how good she was. But on weekends, there were times when our families and their families would come to the sheep camp, and we would have a party, you know, backbone stews and then ribs. And at that time, some of our folks were still farming, so they brought their vegetables and fruits. So we had a big feast on weekends, and it was really nice, you know. I mean, to me, this was our business. This is the way we were raised. We had no idea that, to some degree, we were in poverty, but we never knew anything about poverty. We were happy.
When you're out there at sheep camp, you'll never go hungry out there. because they're right there with you. And all you need to do if you're short on food, and then you would go and grab one and butcher one. And of course, everything was doing for yourself. You had your flour, you had your coffee, you had whatever, all the ingredients that you needed to prepare. And it was plentiful.
So there's another corral that's pretty big. It's probably holds about, I'd say probably about 1,000 sheep or more. They took time in building this. The wood are pretty big, and they used a lot of the trees are in this area. You can see where they're pretty cut down way back. And it looks like they left an opening there for the sheep to go through. I've seen other corrals where there's a bigger opening where when you bring in your sheep, you bring probably a bunch of them in all using that same gate, but this one is unique in its way because it looks like it's just, you would bring them in single file and take them out single file.
During that time in the 30s or 40s, they built a dam, and that's where we water our sheep as well.
Just looking at the area to see where their high and low spots are to where you might want to put a dam or earthen structure to where it's going to hold the water. So they probably started doing that with, it could be in a shovel or whatever just to get started, or they had a couple of mules, bringing sand or dirt right within the area with other things, and then using the Fresno to dig it, to make it, a bowl so that it's going to hold the water. Once they started bringing the sheep over Mount Taylor from Ensenal, then they probably just walked them at a slow pace so they could graze and eat slowly as they went. And if they came upon a stream or whatever, so they could drink water, because you don't want to rush them, because a lot of them could die on the way or whatever, So they took their time getting here.
That was the good part of going to the mountain, because it was a lot of adventure out there, and whatever they had going on around here, like fiestas, or maybe you came home one day, following next day you were back on your way again.
In the old days, there was hardly any schools in English. They had schools that were teaching Spanish. So many of our folks spoke Spanish. So they got along real well with people, what little people they have in San Mateo and south of there, Spanish people. They hired them to herd sheep, to work around there, and then also the Navajos. In fact, they came and helped shear wool and pack and, herd cattle and all that. Dehorn them, brand them, and do whatever they have to.
They like to get the sheep herders, like from the the Navajo tribe. They'll go travel to Gallup or Tharu or wherever and look for sheep herders, and they'll bring them out. They'll stay there 2-3 weeks or whatever. The relationship came to where they started having intermarriages and that type of thing, where our people were among the Navajos, that type of thing.
Families from the Navajos, their families were also pretty close with people that although they were hired to help and work, but they also came in families.